Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker Hagan.
Hey, good evening. This is Dr. J.R. Picklet, and welcome to this Tuesday night, the second Tuesday in this month of February, the love month. And it's so good to be here, Dr. Val.
Yes, I bring you greetings from Atlanta, Georgia. I have a newborn grandson. So I'm excited for Carter Isaiah. I'm here. Um, 2 weeks old. 2 weeks old. I had to see my
Wow.
grandson. I just left Tampa, and my other grandson, David Alexander Parker II. I had the honor of doing his baby christening, and my other grandson, Miles Anthony Parker, was down from New York. So I had my three grandsons this
Wow.
weekend.
Look
So
at
I'm
you.
so excited.
Look, I'm almost jealous. We hold that in common. We both have three grandsons, three grandsons in this, and you got a chance to have all three of yours. So you've been doing the grandson tour.
Yes, I've been doing my tour this weekend. My granddaughter Destiny was on our show last year.
Yes.
She's in
Yes.
her first year of college, so look at the gap.
Wow, exactly, right? Wow. Well, listen, she'll be able to share them all the tricks of the trade and all the things to get everything they want to get out of grandma. So she'll be able to share that with them for sure.
Absolutely. I am so excited to continue the show from last week, and I thank you for holding everything down. We have our magnificent guests that are back with us, and love
Yes.
stages. Love has so many degrees of love, and being in love, out of love, between love. And, we always want to hear what the men have to say. So I'm so glad that we're able to do that because of the fact that women always want to know what men are thinking.
Well, I'm so glad that I have you to say that because it's not always seemingly that way. Sometimes it seems like they don't want to hear what we're saying, but it has been proven that when we do have that voice, when that voice is heard, when we do get a chance to share, that I think women are intrigued the fact that we want some of the same things. We want some of the same things, and then there are times that we do have an insight to how do you get what you need from us simply if you just listen, give us an opportunity to listen. So we have our guests. If
Well, it is also Black History Month.
Absolutely.
It's also Black History Month, so we want to also acknowledge that because Black History isn't just one month; it is every month, and it is every week,
Absolutely.
every day.
Every day, 365. You don't hear us, Mr. Dorsey? Wow. Hey, we were doing so fine. you, you don't hear us. So
Can
why
you?
don't you go out and try to come back inside of that, and that'll help some there. So,
Mhm.
Dr. Val, you're exactly right. Uh, this year here is special in a sense of as we acknowledge Black History Month. And I like to say 365 because the fact when we say the month, that is time that we raise awareness to everyone else of our contributions and to this society, to America. And it's so important, especially in a time that we're dealing with the government that are trying to pass laws and things that prohibits us from really even teaching real history, that want to not talk about some of the atrocities that have happened. Well, when do we win? You don't want to tell the truth about our contributions, and you don't want us to tell the truth about the way we were treated. So, once again, another way to silence our voices. But when we look at that Black History 365, it brings us to this thing that oftentimes, perhaps it's a misnomer, but we call it Black love. What make Black love different from other love? And yet it's still, there's distinct differences in sometimes how we handle things, the things that we tolerate, the things that we reject, the things that we are patient with, and the things that we're impatient with. And there's so many lessons to be learned. And that's why when we start talking about these different stages of love, you know, they come from also different periods of time, different different times of relationship. And those things are all very important. I'm going to see if Mr. Dorsey's ready to come back on in just a second. But, this is the love month. Consider the fact that next week, this time, it will be the day after Valentine's.
Mm.
And it should be interesting. There are a lot of times there are a lot of heartbreak at Valentine's. There's a lot of disappointment on Valentine's, and yet it's still, we go back and try it again next year, right? All right,
Mm.
Mr. Dorsey, can you hear us? Okay. So if you would just center yourself there, okay. So you can unmute yourself now, and we welcome you back for part two.
Good to be back.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the stages of love we've been in, and that's so interesting, right? You know, but do you find it being more digestible, Dr. Val, when we talk about love in stages? Because love can seem overwhelming for some who have had bad experiences. Bad experiences cause people sometimes to shut down. They and sometimes shut down and they reject love because they don't want to risk being hurt again. The
Well,
stages of love.
well, I think one of the problems that individuals go through and face is the fact that they don't take the time to heal during
Mhm.
that break or that separation or whatever you're going through in that relationship. When you're hurt, when you're broken, you need to take time for you to discover you again, what you like, what you don't like, how did you wind up with this individual, and what to look for so that it doesn't repeat itself again. Because we're creatures of habit. You see someone in a domestic violence situation, and then the next person and the next person after that wind up being abusive just as well. It's a you wind up in the same relationships because you know that street number. You go back
Mhm.
there because it's familiar to you. So
Hmm.
we want to make sure that women, that when you leave one relationship, take the time to decompress and evaluate where you are, how you got there, and why you don't want to go that way again.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mr. Dorsey. You're going to say
I'm
something.
sorry. Yeah, I can say the same thing for men. Just as women, go through those periods of just being hurt, and you have to get to that place and space where you can heal. And it's like, how do I heal? How do you get back to that place where you can find yourself again because you've gotten so consumed in a relationship? Where do I start? Do I start with prayer? Do I start with counseling? Do I start with therapy? Do I start with songs? Do I start where do I start? Because so much time has gone by that you've forgotten who you really are. And men do it as well. It's not
Mhm.
just women that we have to go through that healing process. We have to take the time for ourselves. We have to sit back and contemplate, how did I get here? What happened that brought me here? Is it something that she did? I did, but you can't worry about that because it's done. It's over with. So how do I fix me? And I think many of us, many people don't know how to start that process. And that's how that cycle keeps repeating itself. That's how that street gets familiar because we don't know how to get that healing.
Mhm. I think
Well,
you said it. You start with God. When
Hmm.
you're allowing a power higher than your own, that is God, who's
Hmm.
all natural. The Word of God tells us that in Him we live, we move, and we have our being. So
Amen.
when we're in a relationship, a lot of times we lose track of the fact that it is in God that we're here. It is in God that we're able to excel. It is in God that we live beyond the multitude of faults.
Hmm.
yes.
So until we get back to that foundation that of God being all supreme being, that He's a power greater than ourselves, because if we could have fixed it, we would have fixed it.
Long time ago.
We would have
Well,
fixed it a long time ago if we could do it within our flesh. But the word also says we know that in our flesh holds no great thing.
Hmm.
So
yeah.
if we could have done it, we would have did it. But we need somebody that is higher than us to
Yeah.
intervene in our behalf.
I think I think that sometimes what happened too is that really there's an identity issue that happens right in the midst of what we call love. Because real love requires transparency. Real love requires vulnerability. Real love will find itself conforming to that in which it loves. And
Mm,
sometime we're so searching and needing reciprocity that we'll go all the way out in the deep. hoping that we get it. And sometimes we get so far in the deep that we look around and we don't see the shore no more. And when we get out there like that, we've lost our identity. And so now, when it comes to the fact that the relationship have ended, all of a sudden you look around, you don't see the shore, and now I don't
Mhm.
know who I am anymore. And so, because I don't know who I am, this is a sense of being lost. This is a sense of being hurt. This all of these things here. So now I'm trying to guard me. I want to guard me. Some choose to guard themselves, while others look to find distractions. Distractions. Why? Because I don't want to deal with the reality that I don't know who I am anymore. So I'm almost saying, give me a reality. Give me who I am. And so guess what? We gravitate back toward those same type things because once again, it's familiar to us. But at this point, we have lost who we are. And that's the thing about it. And I agree with you. Once we have lost who we are, the only way to find ourselves again is to go back to the manufacturer,
Hmm.
the
Mhm.
one who created
Mhm.
us. We have to
Mhm.
go back to the manufacturer. That's where we have to be repaired at. We cannot be repaired by another man and by another woman whatsoever. Now, can God use someone to come into our lives? But even inside of
Absolutely.
that, if we're not ready, if we're not healed, God could allow someone to come in our lives who won't have the capacity to receive it. We can reject it. And that's where it happens a lot of time when we deal with brokenness. Broken people don't have a set template how they react to things. We act to things when we're broken, we react to it according to really where we are in the moment. Some
Hmm.
broken people repel, they you couldn't love them again if you wanted to because they have retained the memory of that past experience, so they don't want to receive love. I mean, anything that you do is suspect. Why? Because the other relationship, it started off loving too. It started off being nice too. It started off with conversations too. And the very semblance of that says, no, no, but baby, I'm just trying to get to know you. Yeah, that's what they all say. And as a result of that, we have a real issue. And so we've experienced that, right? You talk about broken men, women, but folks don't think that men can be broken. Men can be very much broken. And
Mhm.
when men are broken, it's a very interesting place because for some men, when they're broken, they may deal with the sense of retaliation. By the same token, they may deal with the sense of totally non-committal. I'm not committing to anything, nothing. Nothing is reality. Hold me not to anything, and it takes something to come out of that mindset as well.
Yeah, and men, we are not as vocal. We are not as like we're not as vocal as women. Women will express themselves. Women will
Mhm.
just lay it out, and they'll just tell you what's
Not all the
going on.
time.
Right, not all the time, but if you were to compare the two, you all would
Yeah,
be more vocal than men would
yeah.
be because we'll carry things on the inside. I speak for me, but I'm learning now in the relationship that I'm in now. I'm learning to be more vocal. I'm learning to not hold things back and to share
Mhm,
my feelings and to share my
mhm.
emotions because it's healthy to do that. I'm finding that it's like, ooh, ooh, that feels good to kind of share
Mhm.
my feelings. I don't have to carry that around. I don't have to be bogged down and weighed down with stuff anymore and internalize things and be angry on the inside. On the outside, yeah, everything's fine. But on the inside, I'm dying.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So, but men, we have to be more vocal. We have to be able to express our emotions and say how we really feel. And there are many men who feel like it's weak. You're a sissy. You're a punk. If you don't have break. Real men don't. Real men do cry. Real men do express themselves. Real men do hurt and say, "Hey, man, that hurt me."
yeah.
That's what real men do, and I don't see anything wrong with that. And I'm learning that I have to do that.
My question to both of you is, when is too soon too soon after you leave a relationship, after you leave an extensive, long divorce? How soon is too soon before you interact or get involved in another relationship?
Well, I think it varies. I think it varies based
It
upon the
does.
experience that man have had. I think it varies upon where that man was at the end of that journey. For some
Mhm.
people, they finally got the courage to get out. So it was like escape from Alcatraz. Yes, thank you. And
Yeah,
so
because they had already mentally exited the
they
relationship.
had
Exited
already
anyway.
mentally
They were
exited.
done.
Yeah, they their physical exit was delayed, but mentally they had been gone already. And so for them to be absent Well, I almost sound like the scripture, to be
Absent
absent
from
from
the
the
body
body.
to be present.
Okay, but to be absent from that individual physically was the last stage of that liberation. Mentally, they checked out, but they had checked out they had checked out, if you would, up under the cover of the fact that I'm still here, like the old song. My body's here with you, but my mind is on the
Mine
other
is on.
side of town.
Yo, my body's here with me, but your mind is on. Yeah.
And so that does affect how soon a person get into a relationship. And I also think that there are stages that sometimes when a person does decide to get into a relationship again, that they either make up their mind that I'm not looking to get into anything serious. I'm basically, if you would, I'm testing the waters in the sense of, to a certain degree, I'm testing how I will react to someone. I'm testing, whether or not I'm open, whether or not I'm bitter, because now I'm more sensitive to the fact of my own behaviors and my own actions. And
Hmm.
so I've stuck my toe in the water and go, oh boy, either it's too cold or it's just right. If it's too cold, guess what? I pull back. I'm not going to look to get involved. But if it's just right, now, little by little, I may allow myself to open up and be a little transparent and open up. But you now take those lessons, or you should take those lessons with you that you got from the other side, because true healing is the ability to admit also where my baggage was, where my contribution was. That's true
Hmm.
healing. When a person hasn't healed, watch their language. They will always blame the other party for everything. The
Mhm.
everything. Boy, they
Hmm.
they stole the air right out of the room. Every time I was around them, they stole all the air. Everything is someone else's fault.
Yeah.
When you really begin to heal, you come into a realization because you take your own personal inventory. I'm able to say she was right about that.
Hmm.
I might not could have said that she was right when I was in it, but on the other side of my healing, now I can identify she was right about that.
Hmm.
Well, I can understand. Yeah, man, I sure was busy. I sure consumed a lot of time. I sure didn't give you attention, and I can admit those things. But I can admit those things not with the what you say, with the mission of just rehearsing it over and over again, but being conscious enough to say, okay, let me be mindful of that, and we really generally try in future relationships not to commit those same sins, if you would.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I say, my relationship now is that I've learned some things about myself in this relationship that about my past relationship. I shut down. I just completely shut down. I didn't talk. I didn't say how I felt. It's like, yeah, okay. And that was not healthy. And I learned that about myself. And my current woman, my fiance, she tells me, well, baby, you can talk to me, you can trust me. And for me, it's like, oh. But now I'm learning that, hey, I can trust her. I can trust her with my feelings. I can trust her with my emotions. I can trust her with my deepest secrets. And God knows I want to. I want to be able to talk to her. I want to be able to cry to her. I want to be able to come and share those intimate things about my life with her, and not be afraid. And back to what you were saying, when is it too soon, or is it too soon? When me being able to communicate now, like I was not able to communicate, that tells me that there's something up with this relationship that I'm really digging, that I'm able to open up. I'm really, it's kind of like not Stella, but Stefan getting my groove. You know, that's it. You're lost and you're kind of getting your groove. It's like, man, I'm kind of digging this. This is pretty cool. It feels good to go ahead, Dr. Valerie.
Well, one of the things that I've always said to the viewing and listening audience is that if you can't be in a relationship with someone that you can be your authentic self with, then you don't need to be in that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the thing about it is, a lot of individuals that are in relationships know good and well they shouldn't be in that relationship, but they stick
Amen.
it out hoping that individual will change and conform to what they want them to be. And that's where everything starts derailing, is because you can't change someone's heart. You can't change it because, first of all, they have come from different backgrounds.
Absolutely.
And unless you find someone that is familiar with where you've been as far as upbringing is concerned, then you're not going to, chances of you meshing together are almost slim to none because of the fact that your expectations are always going to be different. But you can come from a affluent background and someone not be as influent, and it can work because
Hmm.
of the fact that your mindset is, I want to be there with you, let us rock this together, and then
Hmm.
you can go to that next level together. But then,
Hmm.
are you able to walk in humility enough for that other partner to walk alongside you and not you in front of them?
As the scripture says, how can two walk together except they agree?
Hmm.
We can agree to disagree, but we're headed in the same direction in the mission. We can disagree on some things, but we agree that, hey, our mission first is to serve God. That's what we're going to do. And if there's some things that we disagree on, we
But wait
can.
a minute, wait a minute. What about individuals that don't believe in God or believe that they should have God in their relationship?
Is that unequally yoked?
Well, two unbelievers is equally yoked because they
For
neither
sure.
one of us a believer. But how do we, from both of you, how do we influence individuals that are in relationship that they can't succeed in going with God? Because there's a lot of people that don't believe in God and they're, making bank, but
Hmm.
and they say they're happy, they're raising their children all without God. What?
Well, I personally think it is quite the misnomer. People may not say that they believe in God, an entity by name, but the heart of every in the heart of the hardest atheists, they are fighting every day to resist naming and identifying, quote, a higher power.
Yeah,
Hmm.
But the reality is they know that it exists.
they know.
Hmm.
You
They
know,
know.
so in the words of Shakespeare, a rose by any other name is still a
There's
rose.
a
And
rose.
so, and so for them, what they do understand, there is a basic sense of right and wrong,
And wrong.
equal, unfair, and fairness. And so they govern their lives based upon those things. The difference is that until they really identified what they have is a theory, what they do lack is the fact of a foundation that says this here is bigger than our opinion. This here is bigger than our just thoughts and our experiences. This is the word of God. It's the infallible word. And we want to govern our lives by this because it has been proven that when we conduct our lives by this, that there's blessing, there is guidance that comes with it. And so even the greatest of atheists are people who say they don't believe in anything, they believe in love. They believe in something that's supposed to hold them together. And so the influence inside of that is this: everyone may have their own idea of what a relationship looks like, healthy or unhealthy. Roles, kind of like what we talked about the other week. We subscribe to roles, whether those roles have been passed down to us from generation to generation, or because of the fact we've heard someone say, well, a man's supposed to do this, a woman's supposed to do that. But at the end of the day, a person must come to the conclusion to understand what role fits them, what role fits them. Because listen, there are some women that I know they can boil water successfully, but the man in the house does all the cooking. Does it make her not a woman? Does it make him not a man? No. But there are things that they do. So they subscribe to roles, they subscribe to things that they can agree upon and that they can function in that brings out the best of them. And they don't allow for certain things to become the enemy that divides them. It goes back to that common goal, that common vision. What is it? I mean, we all on the same team. I think most time we break down because we forget that we're part of the same team.
Hmm.
We,
Hmm.
we, we forget that. So now we're opposing each other, but we're on the same team. Look at the uniform, the same uniform, and have to stop treating each other like we're part of a different team.
Yeah. Yeah. Treat each other like teammates, not enemies. We're on the same
Absolutely.
team. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So where do we go from here? Okay, we've broken up, we've made up. We've moved on to other relationships. So what else is there? How do you open that door to believe that love is able to exist for you in this dispensation? Because I know there's a lot of women and a lot of men, they feel that after a certain age that, oh well, nothing, I'm not flowing like I used to. The grays are showing. I got a little what do you call this, senior bumps going on there.
Uh-huh.
you know uh so a lot of women feel that life is over after divorce because they've been with someone for many years. I mean, I was with my first husband for 19, but never did I think I wouldn't get married again. It was more or less, was I willing to open my heart to receive and be able to give to that individual? Because, I never believed in a relationship being lopsided where it only catered to, one side. I believe that it should be a dialogue where in the first marriage it wasn't. Everything was catering to him. I let go of the I, me, myself, and I, and everything was for him, where God didn't tell me to do that. It was supposed to be a shared relationship. And
Hmm.
I think that's what fails in a lot of relationship is because, like Dr. J says, there are roles that individuals need to play, and we need to be able to complement one another in those roles, still edifying.
Yeah, we in those in relationships, and I'm learning that we have to keep it spiced. We have to constantly date one another. We have to constantly come to the table. We have to constantly keep dialogue going. We have to constantly check in with one another and be honest about how we feel. Honey, you have to have your date nights. You have to do that. You have to force yourself. I was having a conversation last night with my fiance, and she was talking about some friends of hers, and they were saying that they are struggling to make to stay together. They're just having a lot of things going on, and they don't know what to do. They're thinking about breaking up, thinking about staying together, thinking about doing this, and then somebody else moved in the house, and that's a problem, and it's just all kind of things. And I said one thing that they have to do. So he came to her and said, well, baby, I want us to, I don't want to break up. I want us to do this and do that. I said, well, what they have to do is to make time for each other. If you still love that person, you have to make time for that person. You have to set those times, and you can't break it. If every first Monday is your date time, you have to make sure you do that. No matter come hell or high water, swim or sink, that has to be done. If you don't do that and you put it off, it gets easier every time to put it off until you're no longer doing it at all. And you find yourself drifted, you're off in the waters, and that relationship is gone because that spice you had, that love you had, that attention you had, that relationship you had has diminished. It's gone.
Has our other guest arrived, Dr. J?
Yes, yes, he is. And he's been listening all to that. And in his book, he deals with the fact about the roles and how sometimes people's stereotypical roles or roles that they traditionally learned can actually be an enemy to the growth of relationships. So, Dr. Adrian Carter, welcome back. And I know you was listening on. I can only imagine you was probably saying, they said, boy, there go those roles again, right?
A-
Uh, and
Absolutely.
yeah, those roles deeply affect us. And sometimes the biggest issue, the roles become a bigger issue than really what the problem was initially.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I was switching over to my earpiece. What was the last part that you said when you switched? I'm not home. I'm in a different location, and I had to get to Wi-Fi so
Gotcha.
that I could
I'm
get
not
on.
home either. I'm in
Yeah.
Atlanta. We had a time before the show.
Good.
So what we were saying was that I know that you've written about roles and
Hmm.
how roles could actually be a problem based upon the fact that people seemingly, if you would, they seemingly, if you would, begin to confine themselves to roles that they've been given, roles that traditionally in their mind, and now they're trying to fulfill something that may not even be what either one of them want. And so the roles begin to be the stumbling block in their way. They can't get to love because they're too busy being consumed by roles.
Yeah, we've been indoctrinated so much into these ideas as to what relationships are supposed to be, as opposed to allowing ourselves within the relationship to learn from each other. What's the best way to support each other? So there's so many preconceived notions. I write, as I've heard and I've been taught and come to understand, even that a lot of what we're doing as an approach to relationships is really just it's a setup for failure to begin with. We're trained into a state of divorce
Mm.
before we are really trained into a state of being together. And too many people can really testify and acknowledge that they'll talk about a life cycle in the relationship where they had to learn to undo all of their learning, right, and learn to rethink what actually works within the relationship, because sometimes a lot of what they've been taught just doesn't work for the betterment of the relationship. Um, a big part of that too is the example that we've seen. There's a point when I saw a relationship through the eyes of how my father led his relationship, and I had to learn that I'm not married to my mom, his wife.
Right.
So, so my behavior or my way of thinking and seeing was based on how he was responding to my mom, but I'm not married to my mom, right? So I had to learn how to be okay, shift to, well, this is who I'm with, and build a dynamic around that. But a lot of it too is, I think, is difficult and confusing. I was in a conversation today on Clubhouse, and even the idea of a man loving himself is, self-love. We have a way of splitting this thing called love and respect. We like to say women want to feel love, men want to feel respected. And I think that's a very false notion, right? Again, um, overall in relationships, I think we're having the wrong conversations and we are having the wrong definitions. Okay. So the wrong conversation is, we're talking about all these different things, not really talking about the problem. So and then the definitions are is how we're defining things within the relationship. That also leads to another problem as well. I give you an example. We define leadership in such a male centric way. Men lead, as if women don't. But then we say women want to be loved, men want to be respected, almost as if women don't want to be respected, but they do. And as if men don't want to be loved, and they do. See, so all of these various things all of this is being thrown into this pot where people say they want to be in a relationship and they want to have this kind of a relationship, but you have to do more unlearning and relearning in order to really get to the success that you want in the relationship. And that's also being Christ centered at the same time, learning to have guiding principles at the center of it, and able to build the dynamics of your personality of who you are around it.
Mm.
That's something. I'm, you really gave me something to look at. You
That's 2 weeks in a
you're
row. That's 2 weeks in a
yeah,
row, man. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, what he said, like, he's not married to his mom. His dad was,
Right.
and then we find ourselves trying to mimic relationships. I'm not married to that person, so I can't. And that person has a completely different personality than that person. So I take what I've learned and what I saw into another relationship. That's not going to jive well.
Right.
And you have to unlearn all of these different things in life. And, oh my God.
That
Yeah.
goes back to what I was saying about the different upbringings of individuals.
Yes.
Like Dr. J was saying, he knows somebody can't boil water, but they're functioning in that relationship because he already knew she couldn't boil water, and he
Exactly.
cooks, so he's cooking. So that's how you have to create the balance. And I think what
Hmm.
happens is, along the way, they get tired of the fact that They can't boil. They can't cook. All they could do is boil water
Boil water.
and
You need to
maybe
boil
throw
an egg,
in
huh?
there every now and then. So they get weary because I don't know. Maybe gentlemen, you could answer if they feel that they're being taken advantage of.
Well, I'll say this: two things. One, I've come to learn that when you really get down to the nook and cranny, when you talk to married folks,
Mhm.
a lot of the social conversation is what I refer to it as, the conversation that we have in the public, right? A discourse and these different things that we throw into the conversation that shape the way people think, act, and feel is very different from the reality of what's going on in most
In their house.
relationships, right? Because in the house, you'll find out that men extremely domesticated, men cook,
Oh
fold
yeah.
clothes, iron. I haven't met a woman who could out iron me yet.
Me either.
Me neither.
Boom, boom. You see what I'm
I'm,
saying?
hey, Dr. Adrian, I'm washing clothes right now. So I'm in the dryer right now.
Right, right. Listen. I have not met a woman who could out iron me yet. It'd be like, ooh, you iron my stuff too. I
I will
like
cut
you.
your
You
finger
can
off with a crease.
iron, right? So you have so many people do different things in relationships, right? Um, I've met one woman who could out clean me, but I ain't met nobody else. I could say she probably keep. I told that to my mom the other day. I said, mom, I ain't met nobody who could out clean me yet. And I'm Jamaican. It's my heritage. And the same way you can talk about Jamaican men having 7, 8, 9, 10 jobs, it's also customary for my family is Jamaican and Bahamian, for you to find that my uncle, he sews, he cooks, he cleans. You go to his house, don't touch nothing. He'll serve you, right? So you have a lot of these different things in ways men show up. But then when we go to the outside world and have this conversation, it's we begin to box people into things that are just not true.
Not
Mm-hmm.
a true at all. Yeah.
It's not true at all. So
Yeah.
so you really don't have people that are really failing each other in those things. I think we're just not having honest conversations because it's we have decided in many ways to either hold on to the social conversation of, well, yeah, men are, yeah, you're it's not going to be Mr. Dorsey that's out there cooking and cleaning and doing clothes. That's the woman's job, when in reality that's not true.
Mm.
And I think the other thing, to answer your question, Dr. Valerie, is it goes back to comedian Chris Rock. Rock said, as long as they're having sex in the relationship, right, then you're able to overlook that she could only boil water, right? You knew she was always just able to boil water, but then when the sex stops, right, then all the things that you
Oh,
dislike
All
begin
the
to flare
trees
up.
come up.
yeah. You.
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Now
So
you know you can't boil
All
no
the
water.
weeds start overpowering the
Oh,
yeah,
garden.
absolutely.
right, right. There it
Absolutely.
is.
But let's look at that. Let's look at that. Suppose that one of you are incapacitated where you can't function sexually like you did early on in the relationship. It could be a medical condition. It could be, there's things that happen
Anything.
with men,
Yeah.
there's things that can happen with
Anything.
women.
Right.
So are
Right.
you able, men, to love beyond that?
Women, are you able?
Yes, I
Because it's
think
it's it's
I think
always
I'll be
it's
able
not.
to, because the relationship is important. When you have a friendship along with that marriage, I think you can overcome any situation.
Mhm, mhm.
Well,
I
I
think. Go
go ahead.
ahead, Doctor Thicklin.
Well,
Because and before you go, Dr. Thicklin, let me say this. Like, uh, I don't know how much younger your fiance is than you, Winfred, but
Yes, ma'am.
suppose you're a lot older. Suppose your steam goes out. You would want her to still stay there and love you in the midst of that, and vice versa. So that's what I'm
Yes, ma'am.
saying. There's different things that can go on, but the
Absolutely.
relationship has to be even bigger than that, Adrian, than sex.
I that's a good point. Dr. Thicklin, you were going, and I'm gonna jump in
Yeah,
after you.
I do think a lot of things also come with time and experience. I do. I think most young couple, and this may be a stereotype, we have the energy, we have the passion when we're young, and man, we're like rabbits. It's that. But I think that a lot of time, as we mature, we go and we understand that as much as that may be a great part of it, it's not all of it. It's not the necessary thing that floats or sink our ship. And so we learn to love beyond that moment, to love beyond that alone. We find other things to do, things that really just brings us together inside of that. I think that's a different level of consideration. Also, when a person is, say, for instance, sick, or a person there's something that has happened to them that is beyond their control. It's the compassionate side of us, especially if we've had any invested time where we had some good seasons in our life, it causes us to have a greater degree of patience and greater degree of if you would, understanding. On the other hand, if you've been a hellraiser and we've been having problems all along, and I never had no peace with you before, and now that didn't stop
It's a
working,
wrap. Yeah.
it becomes almost like, okay, got to go
Oh
back.
yeah.
Now you notice everything, right?
Yeah.
And so it can affect you. Bottom line, it can affect you. I don't think you hang your entire hat on that. But I tell you one thing, it's good to have a good attitude. I often tell women all the time,
Like that.
sometimes I think you have to come knowing that you have more to offer than just your body. Have
Yeah.
some, you got to have more to offer than just that. Matter of fact, one of my things have always been just say to her that you're more than hips and thighs and butt and behind and
Yeah.
all those things. You need to understand that, because I don't want you to think that's going to be your signature card, because at the end of the day, you have all that.
He's
And
cooking.
girl,
I
you
hear
got the worst
pots.
attitude in the world.
I,
You just all this other stuff. Now I'm talking about me. It just don't fly with me. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hold on,
It
Dr.
just doesn't.
Valerie. What did Dr. Valerie call it? You said a cookie and a box. What you said? Something
Oh, I
about?
said I
she
hear
said
a lot of
somebody's
pots singing
cooking
around in the
pots.
background. I hear all this music.
Oh, okay. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, don't mind me. I thought you were referring to something else. Go ahead.
But let's talk about that.
You know what?
Let's talk about that, Adrian.
Yeah, that pot. I pray that nothing like that ever happens. And Dr. Valerie, you're right. The relationship is important. It's so much bigger and greater than the physical intimacy. It is, and it should be. But I also believe in having intimacy without having physical intimacy.
Mhm.
I believe that I can make love or have intimacy with my significant other and not actually have the physical event to take place. And I think if we go through, relationships with the good attitudes, with the great relationships, and also with the physical, with the not physical intimacy, and having that part in that relationship, if something happens to that other person, I believe, with God's help, with God at the center of it, we can't take God out of the equation. Um, the chances of something going awry, the chances of something happening that would be negative, that would cause that relationship to separate, would be slim to none, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Well, to a certain extent, Winfred, but sometimes we don't know the hand that's dealt to us until
Right.
the
Till it's
card
dealt.
hit the
Right.
table. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So that's where I side on I err on the side where Dr. Thickley talks about having a purpose driven relationship that serves beyond the physical.
Hmm.
And one of the things, in three parts, you have that carnal, emotional, and then that spiritual relationship. And that carnal relationship is that physical,
Hmm.
um, lay up and down relationship where you're attached to the person based on your carnal needs. And when I say carnal, that could also just, even it's for the money,
Yeah.
the sense of security.
Right.
Then you have your emotional needs where you begin to bond, and you share an emotional tie, and you're able to say, hey, I love this person, and you care about them. And when they hurt, you hurt, right?
Hmm.
And you grow in that way. But ultimately, I advise, my clients when I'm coaching men, and women, that they have to grow to a level of the spiritual part of the relationship being their focus. And in that space, I'm talking about them being centered with a purpose, them understanding and self love, what it means to love themselves, to respect themselves, to have integrity within their framework of how they live their life, and how to pursue wisdom in how the relationship is had, and through that spiritual relationship with Christ, with their maker, and with themselves. Then when you have those dynamics going, right, then you're able to, it it overtakes, it's like the oil that goes up to the head and runs down to the skirt,
Understand
it
to it. Hmm.
overflows, right,
Hmm.
and touches over the carnal and touches over the emotional, and you're able to grow within that. But that does take some rethinking, some undoing, some
Yes.
relearning how to really move in that. So I'm all for that. Things do happen. I think when a person comes upon that, they have to. I hope that they would have grown in their relationship, where they're able to overcome that test. But the relationship, I believe, as Dr. Thicklin said, as you get older, and you mature,
Right.
that sex matter becomes less important, and the quality of the
Hmm.
relationship, the heart of the person, the integrity, those things become increasingly more important, because
Oh
those are
yeah.
the things that make the relationship sustainable, as opposed to the other things. Because if there ain't been a house of peace, and you
Oh,
said,
it's
"Man,
a
it's
wrap.
time,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's a wrap.
it's
Yeah,
time
you
for
you.
for
So
some
you
mashed potatoes and dumplings, man, because we
so that pot that you were talking about.
that pot that for somebody else about to get cooked. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's important to keep peace. It's important to nurture the relationship because we never know
Not
what
to
could
take
happen to either
advantage
party.
of the other person's
Absolutely,
kindness and love towards them, because
absolutely.
that happens in a relationship. Emotional abuse and
Hmm.
Yeah.
holding sexual pleasures because they
Yeah.
know they can control that way. So
Hmm.
these are things that break down a relationship, because guess what? You withdraw, withhold, then that opens the door for them to look elsewhere. Because if you not uh doing nothing but boiling water, and then, as the brothers say, you take away the sex part too, and then you emotionally abandon them, there's nothing left.
Oh, it's a
Well,
recipe
that.
for
Let
disaster.
me tell you. I understand that very well. That's one of the reasons why I don't like to. I've learned to be very. Um, Let me see. How do I say this? When it comes to a matter of infidelity, see, I realize that people cheat with people, places, and things.
Yes.
See,
Hmm.
people
Oh yeah.
cheat with people, places, and things. And a lot of times, the thing that I don't like about infidelity is that's easily a public hurt that's
Yeah.
able to be examined. But man, that private hurt of how the person has controlled the sex in the background, used it
Oh,
as a weapon. Oh man, that thing is worse.
it's
You
worse.
know, it's worse. But that public issue can easily become the motivation of a conversation and judgment, because So that's one of the reasons why I don't judge that thing, so easily without a whole lot more information, because it's so easy to point to that outward situation
Hmm.
of that
Hmm.
public
Because
infidelity. But
you
mm-mm.
never know what happened. You don't.
Oh man, let me tell you, the things that can go on in the background can really, and here's the thing too, and I don't mean to pick on women, but I was having a conversation at the barbershop, and with the barbershop therapy
Oh,
program,
the barbershop. Yeah, they got a
right?
nice little therapy program at the barbershop.
Um, and we were having a conversation. The lady there, I made him. I was talking about how men experience certain abuses, and the lady said, "Oh, women abuse men more than men abuse women." She says, "I think women are worse." And this is the woman talking, but she spoke to understanding that the underhanded currents of the way things can move that can control a situation, but it may not have the same level of presentation. So men look a certain way. Women, it keeps women looking nice and, let's say, pretty and nice and everything spice, but a lot of that underhanded stuff goes on in relationship that contributes to it. And may I add, I land with this: men do it too. I know that there's
Mhm.
some brothers who they withhold as a means of controlling the relationship as well. So y'all need to don't do that. Don't do that. It's
Right.
that's don't do that. People, places, and things are the way that people cheat.
People can weaponize sex.
Basically,
They can weaponize it. They can weaponize money. They
Mm.
can weaponize these things in order to manipulate, to hurt, to destroy inside of it with the intentions of keeping you in line.
right?
Keeping
That's
you in
abuse
line, huh?
101. That's
Hmm.
abuse 101. You
Wow.
weaponize, you become the great teaser, but you start singing the song like In Vogue. You're never gonna get it. No, you're never gonna get it. you know, and so you have been weaponized.
Hold on to your love.
Yeah, yeah. And so we make top five hits through the weaponization of what we feel like will have a control over the other individual. Now, there is a saying out there, which I think is controversial, but I understand the meaning. Happy wife makes a happy life. Well, what's the opposite of that? Reverse the script.
It, that means an unhappy wife makes an unhappy husband, makes an unhappy life.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what does that say to the husband?
Got to
No,
please the
my
wife.
If,
It's
we
it's
if
all.
we flip
So
that
you're
to a
still
husband,
talking about the control, the manipulation.
mhm, okay.
We're almost out of time, so you got to spill it out.
But
Mhm.
so I'm just simply saying,
That's-
I'm simply saying, in terms of that, a happy wife makes a happy life. So an unhappy wife makes a what? A miserable life?
Mm.
Where's the place? Where's that road where we meet together to work it out? Because now you make me feel like somehow or another I'm on an audition. I'm being controlled. Let's check the box to make sure I'm happy. And if I'm happy, guess what? Now you can be happy. It sounds like kid stuff to me.
Oh, absolutely. That's very
Yeah,
controlling.
yeah. It becomes that much. Where's the responsibility? Where's the mutual responsibility? Where's the mutual investment inside of that? And that's a statement that I think it sounds good. It rhymes. But if you really unpack that, hmm,
Yeah, I talk about that in my book, Let's Get Married and Do
mhm,
Everything Except Make It Last. How
mhm,
this notion of happy wife, happy life is a very controlled, it's a very controlling situation. And really, um, what it also does is this: it minimizes the man in a lot of ways down to their sexual nature, because that's really what it falls back to. If you can keep her happy, then she'll keep you happy. And
mhm.
then what does keeping you happy look like?
Look like.
Mm.
Right? And so for the man, in a lot of instances, I'll argue that means he's able to he's able to get sex and have a level of peace around
Peace.
him.
Peace.
So he gets peace and peace. That
And a
Uh-huh.
rhymes.
peace.
Yeah.
Peace and a peace.
Right, he gets peace and the peace, right? And I think what that does is that really lowers the capacity of men. Part of the work that I think is important in
Mm.
these conversations is to really show how men are multidimensional, how we are much more deeper, we're much more thought-provoking than we are giving credit for
Credit for.
inside of relationships. But the idea of, well, I have to make my wife happy also suggests that her happiness can come at the expense of my happiness, in a
Mhm.
hopes that by making her happy, she will in turn return some level of peace and a peace to my life. And it just doesn't work that way in reality. It's not
Exactly.
a sustainable framework for a relationship.
Mm.
So, am I hearing that you brothers are always feeling shortchanged?
Not
Not saying
always.
always, but we are saying the narrative that has been fed to so many women
Hmm.
that they have adopted, it perpetuates that type of thing where basically, basically our happiness is going to be predicated upon the fact that you kept me happy, that you keep me happy, and God, don't let me fall short. Don't let
And
me
if
fall
I'm not,
short. And I go back to reality shows. Women keep the reality shows driven. Real Housewives of Atlanta,
I
Real
can't
Housewives.
stand those
None
shows.
of them are real. They're all reality. They're all, reality
they're
TV.
not
They're not.
reality. It's just
But
they're
people
not
take those
reality.
things on and they
And they try
model
and
their
do what their
marriages.
life according to. I hate those shows.
Yeah. And I think it feeds a bad narrative to women, and they begin to all of a sudden try to train their husband
And
that
to
way.
young people.
Yeah,
It's a bad example to young people
yeah,
as well.
Hmm.
absolutely.
Hmm.
And so it becomes either all about the money, all about the Benjamin, all about this. And man, this is what we got going on, this exchange here. And no one knows what it is like when we really deal with the real issues of life. The things that should mature us end up being the thing that crushes us.
Wow.
Well said.
So, Adrian, I know that you have a training program, you have books, workshops, and seminars you do. Can you tell individuals how they can connect with you?
Yeah, I left my website up. Um, AdrianCarterSpeaks.com is my website. I'm an author of a couple books. One titled "Let's Get Married and Do Everything Except Make It Last," and the other is "Black Fragility: Addressing the Unaccountability of Black Men and Women in the 21st Century to Heal, Encourage, Love, and Protect Blackness." And I'm also a coach. I am America's number one coach, executive, and relationship building coach. That's what I'm letting the world know, that they can come over here and get the type of coaching they need to help them in dealing with divorcees, with couples, and with men. And so I have a training program, one on one coaching and group coaching as well, that I'm available for. And I really love the opportunities that I have through coaching and the program that I've been blessed to put together, because it really goes down into unpacking, like I talked about, what are the definitions that we're dealing with, who how did you establish your identity, how was that built, and unpacking those things with men and with couples and with women. A lot of my clients are also women, which is how I learned about how sometimes the biggest challenge to a woman is another woman. It's not even a man. It's not even a heartbreak that she's experienced from men. Their deepest heartbreak in many instances are coming from their mothers or their grandmothers that they've experienced as they have continued to try to go out into the world as an adult and live their life. They're held down by a lot of those pain that they felt in that way. So please contact me, reach out to me on AdrianCarterSpeaks.com.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you giving your time to be here, and great information. Winfrey?
Yes, Winfred Dorsey. And in fact, just to add to that, I'm also a certified life coach myself. I coach individuals, I coach groups, and I work a lot with those who struggle with substance abuse and coaching them. But I've also coached marriages, individuals, professional people, and I'm like Adrian. I'm open to just coaching people and just leading them out of different spaces and different places and setting them in a place where they can just be whole and healthy again.
And how can they connect with you?
They can connect with me. My email address is wdmaximumresult.com.
You need to move your hand.
Now, since some pop, my battery, my phone is about to go dead. And my cell phone, you can contact me via cell phone,
No,
561.
no, we'll give your email address.
Okay, okay.
We don't want
WD,
people interfering with your fiance in your life.
you are preaching to the choir. That's WD maximum result at AOL.com.
Yeah, we have this problem all the time, especially when we have young men before us. And Dr.
Get a
J,
Google number. Get a Google number,
Yeah, yeah,
Winfred.
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, Dr. J, how can individuals connect with you?
Well, of course, they can go to our website, jrthicklin.com, or they can find us at manofpurpose2000 at gmail.com as one of many ways of reaching us.
Yes, we really appreciate you all being on the show. And as always, you can email us at soultopics@gmail.com, soultopics@gmail.com, and the website is from the soulofawoman.com. We always want to know what you're thinking. We always want to empower and inspire individuals to be the best they can be. And we appreciate you for tuning in. We're here because you're here. Last week I gave quote that said, "It's better to be alone than to wish you were." But in this time, I want to say love affects our past, our present, and our future. Love is an emotion, a gift given to us from God, and it should never, ever hurt. Good night, and God bless.
God
Good night.
bless.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Take care.
All right, you all. Thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you for
End the
everything
show,
that you
Dr. J.
well, thank you.
You have to end the show.
Okay. Look at there.